Tell your story, build your brand. artmedianorthwest.com. artmedianw.com. Now enjoy this conversation with Trinh Youngman. So just I like to introduce the animals that are on the podcast too, just that way people can get to know them a little.
Get them credits.
Yeah, that's right. Well, thank you, Trinh, for being on the podcast.
Of course.
And congratulations on your new album.
Thank you very much.
The Jack Maybe Project. And what's the name of this one?
It's called Weary Bones and Witchcraft. And just like my last album, Old Man Mountain, Another Cautionary Tale, which only had one cautionary tale, this really only has one song that's really about any of the title stuff. And I don't know, it's kind of an inside joke to myself, I suppose.
Right.
But I mean, there are themes that overlie in the album. I just don't make the title about it, I guess.
I think that's cool. People
Thanks.
can kind of look into it in their own way, which I think is important.
Yeah, I don't usually like to explain what my songs are about for the most part, because it kind of ruins what it might mean to somebody already. Like I remember I forget exactly what the song was, but I had this idea of what the song was in my head. Somebody explained what the artist said it was about, and I was like, well, I don't like this song anymore. So
Yeah, that's a good example. So in the early years, where did you grow up, and can you share one or two stories from your childhood?
I kind of grew up everywhere. I was a military baby, and born in Germany. We lived in Italy before I could really remember anything. We moved to the States, to West Virginia, and then my parents moved to Portland for a spell before my mom and I moved down to Texas. And then I lived in Louisiana for like a month before I said no thank you and moved up here to Hillsboro. It wasn't like the cool part of Louisiana, like New Orleans or anything. We lived out in the bayou.
Okay.
In swamps. I remember just getting eaten alive by mosquitoes. I had a very bad first day. I'm not going to get too much into it because it's dumb, but I had a very bad first day and first impression of Louisiana, but or just kind of the South in general. But I do remember New Orleans and Houston and how awesome they were. I just wish I would have lived there instead, I suppose.
Instead of the bayou.
Yeah.
With the mosquitoes.
Yeah.
And when did you start learning music?
Started around 11. My dad put me into piano lessons because I had some interest to learn the guitar or the bass or one of the string instruments, but my dad wanted to see if I was serious about it, I suppose. So he stuck me in some piano lessons with the teacher from across the street, and I did not do well in these lessons. I don't remember ever really learning how to read music with a piano teacher, which is not a good sign, I think. Like, she would just wait there, and I would just guess at what note I was trying to play.
Wow.
Until she would be like, yep, that's the one. And she wouldn't explicitly say, like, this note means this right here. Every time you put, like, I think if she would have just done that, things would have been a lot easier.
It would have made sense.
But I just watched her fingers, and then I tried to do the same thing.
Copy it?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So more of a tactile approach. And how long did that last, the piano lessons?
Maybe a year.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't really have a lot of memory from back then. My dad might have a bit more information on it, but I think it was maybe a year.
Okay.
If it was longer than that, I'd be very surprised.
Yeah. And then what happened from there?
Then I got a blue guitar. Then I started practicing on my dad's bass for a little bit. But every time he would hear me practice, he would like go in his room and practice, and then I'd hear him, and I'd be like, well, I don't want to practice anymore.
Your dad's good.
Yeah, he's really good.
Yeah.
That's why he's in my band.
Yeah.
But I remember getting this blue guitar one Christmas or birthday. I think it was Christmas, though. And it didn't have a brand name, and it would go out of tune every 12 seconds, and it was not fun to learn on. But I learned my first two chords, which was G and D. And my dad would teach me another chord here or there. But for the most part, I learned a lot of it online.
Okay.
Either like just kind of figuring it out, the chords, or like looking up the chords and looking up chord charts and stuff like that. And so a lot of it was self-taught. And even when I was like about to go to school for music, I at that point knew a good amount of music theory, but didn't have the right terminology or like I would call thirds like triangles because they to me that's what it kind of looked like.
Okay.
1 3 5 was a triangle, and so like I had these weird terminology, like weird terms that would not be correct in an
You sort of
academic
coined
setting.
your own phrases
Yeah,
for
exactly.
triads. And
Well, that way
things like
at least I knew what I was talking
Yeah, yeah.
about.
It's like on the Friends episode when she was like, do you play guitar or whatever? And they're like, yeah.
Oh,
She's
the
like,
bear claw, yeah.
a bear claw. Yeah. Or do you know G? It's like, yeah. All right. So what did you listen to at the time musically when you were starting out?
When I first started, I think it was just really anything on the radio. I didn't have as much of an attachment to music as I do now. Yeah, I think I was just listening to kind of whatever was on the radio. I didn't have that strong of a musical attachment. So, kind of just whatever was on. And then as I kind of developed, I got more into like metal and rap. Really anything that was angry, I had a stronger reaction to than anything else. And then I kind of chilled out by late high school and listened to the Beatles and hippie music, as people would say.
It's a funny progression.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think that's
adolescence, I guess, is a time for kind of anger and questioning things and all that.
angst. Yeah, there was a lot
yeah.
of emo music as well.
Yeah.
At some point in that transition.
Sure. How many instruments have you dabbled with?
Piano, bass, guitar, mandolin, banjo, and a bit of fiddle.
Okay.
So I guess that would be 6. And that's just, I mean, piano, fiddle, and mandolin is merely dabbling. Like,
Yeah.
I don't play those for very much at all. But bass, guitar, and banjo, I play pretty seriously, and I play those in different bands around Portland.
And also different styles, right? You studied classical guitar and conducting and composition.
I studied classical guitar, and I still do that to kind of keep my chops up. But I also like classical music for the most part. So I am thinking about trying to do some concerts here at some point. I have a kind of a duo that I might be doing some arrangements and stuff for. But I also do a little bit of jazz, bluegrass, folk, a lot of Americana styles, basically, and kind of the American sound, I guess. I'm trying to expand that recently as far as classical goes, and maybe that'll translate a little bit more later. But for now, it is where it's at.
Yeah. How would you describe your current project, the Jack Maybe project?
I mean, it kind of stemmed in. It's kind of a continuation of my solo stuff. I played solo since I was like 16, which I think was my first gig at Satyricon, which is a weird place, or was a weird spot, especially because like at the time it was mostly for like punk and metal shows, and by 16 I was already doing my hippie folk stuff, and so I would go on stage and look at the crowd of mohawks and studded denim leather or whatever, or studded denim or studded leather, and people were usually good sports about it. Like I remember people pretending to do a hoedown or whatever, like right next to the stage. Not really, like they would get into it, but it might not be their cup of tea, which was, the most I could ask of people who don't listen to my music, I guess.
Yeah, that's actually pretty, pretty well received, actually, I would say, in that crowd. Mm-hmm. What's funny is a lot of times the people that I've found that look like they'd be the most scary and the most angry people tend to be really kind of like kind.
Yeah, and I have a lot of metalhead friends who are the nicest people, like, and do enjoy my music as well.
Yeah,
but they are very into metal. My drummer actually is very much like this. One of the nicest, and will do anything for you. Loves metal. Will, like, as we're on tour, we'll just blare metal music as we go down, and I'll get a headache or something. But but is a great person to be around.
Yeah, nice. So what inspired your new album and the Jack Maybe project to begin?
Well, like I said, just kind of a continuation of my solo stuff. I was kind of looking at what was next at one point, and how much I can do on my own, really. My first album, which you can't really, like, I didn't really put, like, you can find it on Bandcamp and that's about it. My first album, it was mostly me, and then I brought a violinist, a drummer, and a couple people for vocals, but I played bass, I played banjo, I played the guitar, I wrote the songs, and without very much insight from others or contribution from others, it seemed, at least to me, a little stale.
Okay.
So I was trying to figure out what the next step to not make it the same like that was. I mean, a lot of it, I think, also is just learning what I'm doing in the studio and learning
what the songs need.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think a lot of it is also my development personally, but I did kind of yearn for something, and then I was in a band called King Columbia, and that was exactly what I wanted, was just people to help write, people to help bounce off ideas, people to input their musical language and virtuosity in there. And then after King Columbia broke up, that just seemed kind of like the next step, is to kind of focus on my band.
How many people are currently in your live band?
It can get up to 9 at this point.
Wow.
We have our normal, kind of the core members are myself, my drummer Dennis Aish, my banjo player Will St. John, my singer Bree Sawyers, and my father for bass. And then I have Brooke is usually my clarinet player. And then I have a few people kind of in rotation for trombone and trumpet. I had a trumpet player who I normally ask, but they've gotten very busy recently, and so I've been kind of using different trumpet players now, and like my trombone player can't make a couple shows at the end of this month, so I have a different trombone player coming in. So I kind of also enjoy the change in people as well, because it gives it a bit more dynamic. Like if you go see one show and then you see a different show, it's gonna be
it's different. A different thing. Yeah, that's cool. What does your writing process look like?
Oh, and then sometimes Benny comes in on sax.
Okay,
sorry.
Nice. That's okay.
My writing process doesn't look very. It's not that, I don't know. I don't think it's that interesting. Like I'm just sitting in my room, and then I like pick up the guitar, play a little bit, put it down, grab my banjo, play a little bit, sing a line, try and see if that fits anywhere, see it conceptually, think if that means anything, and then I'll like turn to my computer and just like do something completely different, because I can't sit on a subject for that long without changing. Like your brain likes to do like 10-minute to 15-minute sets of like, all right, now let's switch gears, let's switch gears, let's switch gears.
Okay.
And so like I'll do something completely different. When I get back to it, I've either completely forgotten what I was originally doing, or if I remember it, then I know that, hey, maybe that's something I can hold on to. And then I try to fit more stuff, and I kind of just build from there.
Do you play it enough times to where you remember it, or do you record like that whole, creative process?
It's looked different. My song, Whiskey Song, which is on my last album, not this new one, that came out of a weird week where I just recorded everything I ever did in a week. And it was on my Korg D888, and I just had it recording the entire time. And like there was one point I like drank too much whiskey in my studio apartment and was just like singing take a shot of whiskey, and like at the top of my lungs. Probably neighbors hated me. And I kind of took that melody, added to it, hated the song at first, so I never played it, but I would keep coming back to it and adding something. So like a song, but like a song can take forever for me to write. But the last album, I wrote most of those songs in under a month.
Oh wow!
Of just constantly writing. But I think it's also because I stored so much and I didn't write for so long between albums, and I had so much inspiration to draw from and so much pent up energy. It was kind of like as soon as I started, it just all came flooding out.
Yeah.
And then it was hard to close back up because like I wanted to focus on these songs And I think there were like 2 or 3 that were cut from the album as well. But I wanted to work on these songs and focus on these songs, but I kept wanting to write more. Just
Wow, so you just really tapped into that creative well.
yeah, I mean, part of it's just isolating yourself, and then you can do it. It's easier.
Yeah. So I think I know the answer to this, but do you prefer original or cover bands?
Yeah, you probably do. It's original bands.
Yeah.
But it's not because like, I mean, if I see a good cover band, I would enjoy myself quite a bit. It's just that like a lot of new music is just rehashed stuff anyway. So but they're doing a twist, their own twist. They're doing something different. Because like a lot of musical ideas, we only have 12 major and minor chords. And there's only so many like pop music, and there's only so many ways you can put that together.
Right.
So a lot of ideas are rehashed anyway, but I like to see the new spins that are on these ideas.
It is amazing what you can do with a few chords and some different rhythms. And
yeah, my students, I teach them G, C, and D first. I'm like, all right, now you know like half country songs.
That's right. So did the places, I guess, and time that you grew up have an impact on how you learned?
I mean, I'm definitely sure they did. I'm just in it, so it's hard to like say how. And I still consider myself a student. I'm getting my master's currently, so I'm still learning, I guess. Time though. No, yeah, this is a very hard question.
Sure.
I mean, you can look back. You can like look at kind of the history books, or look back and be like, oh, when Bob Dylan was like doing his thing, I would have been great back then doing my thing at the same time. But like, would you have been? Because it costs because back then it costs a lot of money. There's a lot of more barriers in your way. There's only so much of the public attention that was on certain people. Like it was all funneled to certain people, whereas now you can look up anything.
Yeah.
And there's so many different types of media vying for your attention. It's kind of hard to say. Like, would it be easier? I don't think it would have, but you can look back and maybe dream.
Right. Well, it's a mixed blessing too, because there is so much content out there. Like anybody can get lost in the weeds, or they can, Yeah.
But in that same aspect, like finding your niche. I mean, trying to find where your niche is, I think, is hard enough. Like, I still haven't really found mine, aside from like my friends in Portland.
Right.
But finding like, I actually had somebody in Britain email me the other day saying that she loved my music and was like asking if she could put one of my songs in a short film of hers that she was making. And I was like, definitely, tell your friends.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Like, yeah, you can get into the weeds so thick, visit other countries and their cultures and the music. It's a blessing and a curse at the same time.
Yeah. What mentors did you have along the way that come to mind?
I mean, I get inspired by lots of people and things, but as far as mentors specifically to my music, I suppose my first would definitely be my father. He's a musician himself in bands, gigged a lot when I was younger. And then my young peers were another motivation for me. I remember vividly being the second best guitarist at my school. Not the best.
Was it Austin Randall?
It was Austin Randall. And
he is still a great guitar player.
I bet he is.
Yeah.
But
he went to a John Petrucci camp last summer.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. Like hanging out with them in like a mansion for a week with a bunch of other crazy guitar players like that.
I haven't seen or talked to him in years upon years, probably more than a decade at this point. But yeah, I just remember always being like, I can get better because he was around. Yeah. And actually, when I was out of school, it was harder for me to like find that motivation again.
Yeah.
Because we were very different styles, I think I would have lost motivation anyway, because
sure,
he's more into kind of the shredding, right, virtuosic type of playing, and I'm more into the compositional and harmonic type of playing.
Yeah. Yeah. His dad would give him $100 if he learned a Metallica song. That's how he he got the way he was.
My dad offered that with a Rage Against the Machine song.
Did he?
He never followed up on that.
You should hit him up. Oh, man. All right. In your opinion, what are some of the best ways someone can learn the skills that you've cultivated?
The best way would probably be to find a great tutor and just pay that tutor who kind of knows every aspect of it, if you can, or a set of tutors. Like there's not really a need if you're looking to be a performer specifically and not a teacher, then you don't need to go to school, I would say. You just need to, but you do still need to know your stuff. So if school is the only way you can find this information out, go to school. But if you can find somebody who can teach you these, like teach you music theory, teach you music history, teach you how to perform, what the protocols are for whatever type of performance you're going to do, and then teach you the business side as well.
The business is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can find one person or a set of people to teach you all these things, I would 100% say pay them directly and don't go to school for it.
Yeah.
But if you're looking to be a teacher, they require degrees and certificates, so you have to do that.
Yeah. How should people find their passion or start their creative life?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I've always, to my memory, I don't really remember too much before and how I felt about things. But to my memory, I've played guitar like my entire life for the most part. I've had this passion.
Yeah.
If I didn't have this passion, I have no idea what I would be doing. One of the things I like to ask my students when they ask, or when we're talking about living a musical life or being an artist or a creative of some sort, is could you be happy doing anything else in your life? And if the answer is yes, you should probably do that thing, because the artist's life is way harder, like a million times harder, because you have to be a businessman and a creative.
Yeah. And you have to learn that early on, otherwise you're going to struggle for a long time.
And I did not learn that early on,
Me
so
either.
I struggled for a long time.
Yeah, I'm still there, man. But hopefully you're learning it quicker than I did.
I hope so as well.
Yeah. How has technology changed music and the creative arts in general?
In general, it's taken down barriers. Like, you don't need to have like tens of thousands of dollars to make a recording, or really even anymore, you don't need thousands of dollars to do a recording. You just need maybe a few $100 and a few hours of the people you're asking to play with you. So barriers are way down, which means entries are just, anybody can do it. Right. I mean, you could do it. You can get your own stuff super cheap for like maybe a couple $100 and record yourself. Learn how to use all the equipment. Learn how to digitize and MIDI files, or try and figure out how to make these sounds into your MIDI player or whatever. And it's just a matter of how much time do you also want to spend doing this.
Right.
So it's lowered the barriers, which I think is a good thing, because otherwise you just have the elites, the people who already have the money, or people who are going to loan you money to do it. So that can also be very predatory. However, there's also constant access to it, which I think can devalue it in a way. People listen to music all the time, for free, which is great. I like that aspect of it is amazing to me, and I think is wonderful. But then we get paid, 0.07 cents per stream, or 0.7 cents per stream, depending on what you're using. And that's like financially unstable for the artist for the most part.
Yeah.
And then, and you know what? I don't even really mind that. Like, passive income is passive income. I'm not performing. Sure, why not? But then to say to an artist, how are you valuable? Or like, please, like, or to have to like justify why I'm an artist to anybody,
right,
is a huge problem after going through all of that.
Yeah.
So I think the access can devalue it, but I think that overall it's helped more than hurt.
Okay. I like that. And then how has technology changed music for you specifically?
Makes rehearsals easier. I could just record something real quick and then record it on my phone, send it to all my performers. They can hear it, play along with it, kind of have at least an idea of what they're going to want to do. Then we all come to rehearsal with an idea of what we're doing. And then I just be like, no, edit this. I like what you're doing. Change this up. Or usually it's like, all right, you're all doing real great. Keep it up. I have some amazing players that I play with.
That's awesome. All right. And then when did music become your business, and how has your job changed over the years?
That is a good question. I don't think, I mean, at an early age, I definitely consider it my business. I'm not sure when that transition really started. I think it was probably right after I graduated my undergraduate.
Okay.
I went into teaching with Ethos Music as part of their kind of rural outreach program. And we were sent out and taught in the schools, did after school lessons, and kind of made a program of music where there otherwise wouldn't be, which I think is awesome. But I think it was around then where I was trying to write more songs. That's when I got most of the songs on my first album finalized. And then I was able to kind of, I was sent out to Fossil, Oregon, which is a town of 400 or so, a little over 400. And I got used to the Fossil speed out there, which I remember just like, it took a while, but I greatly appreciated just sitting on my porch, just like watching the sky for a while. And I was like, this is pretty nice. This life is pretty good. But I also took that time to, what am I going to do when I get back?
So did Ethos pay you to live there?
Yeah. We had, we didn't have to pay rent because it was covered through Ethos, as part of a stipend or something.
Okay, sure.
And then AmeriCorps would pay us a certain amount of money for kind of just another stipend for living out there. And then we would use food stamps or something because we wouldn't get paid very much. But also when you're in Fossil, Oregon, like what are you going to spend money on aside from food?
Right.
And if that's all being paid for and your rent's being paid for, you have the opportunity to save money. I was dumb and didn't, but you had the opportunity to, and that's what's important.
That's very interesting. I did not know that they sent you out to a rural. I thought they were an urban thing. Is that
it's both? That's the urban outreach program.
Okay.
I taught that for about half a year.
Okay.
And then it was fine, but it wasn't what I wanted to do at the time.
Sure.
I would take another look at getting back into it. I probably wouldn't teach the same things that I was teaching. I agreed to teach ukulele, which is fine, but I also agreed to teach drums, and that was not in my wheelhouse at all.
Oh wow!
So I was way poorly out of my league, and there was 30 kids, so I didn't know how to do it very well with that many kids all on bucket drums. Aside from like Simon Says almost every time, I was not a good drum teacher, but
it might have gone better than you thought, though. You know,
there were some kids who were paying really close attention, but
yeah.
I think the vast majority of it was just something they could do after school because it was younger kids too, so they had a lot of energy, and really as long as they didn't stop or like the other kids from learning, and they weren't like too disruptive, I was like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah,
you know.
Well, I think music experience, goes a long way. If somebody can get some sort of music experience, they get this like, oh, I can do this kind of attitude, as opposed to not thinking it's something that's out of the realm of possibility for them.
Yeah, and we started with super basic rhythms. I was just like, quarter notes, here we go. And they all seem to get like at least the base structure of it to understand at least a little bit of it.
That's good.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Is creativity or skill more important as an artist?
To me, they're both equally important. I think to be an artist, you need both. You need the craft and the art. You need the creativity, the art, for it to mean something and to connect with people, and you need the craft or the technique in order to relay your message accurately and what you want it to be like. Because if you want to relay some terrible tragedy and sadness in your life, but you're playing all major chords and singing this weird like happy song, it can be done, but it's like, if you don't have the ability to do what you want to do, it makes the art harder to, I don't know, relay your emotion, I suppose.
Yeah. No, that's well put. So what are some difficult times that you've faced as an artist?
Money.
Yeah. In a word.
Yeah, in a single word, money. But it's more than just, I suppose, money. In the fact that, like, early on, I realized that there are entire businesses created to take advantage of artists. There's, what were they called back in the day? Big time or something like that music, where, like, oh well, you have to promise at least 10 people will come, or you're gonna have to pay to play here.
Yeah.
And I, like a fool, at that Satyricon show, paid $100 to play on stage. I didn't tell my dad. I still think he didn't know until maybe now. Or until he hears this, I suppose.
Right.
But yeah, that was their entire business model.
Yeah.
Was bleed the artist and profit from it. And and then even when you did make their minimum, which they would take all the proceeds from, they would take half of the what you did make from that on.
Yeah.
Which is unethical, I think, but that's their system, or that was their system. I think they went under, thank goodness. But there's more systems like that out there. I think it's a very LA model.
Yeah. There was one that used to do that at the Roseland, and they would rent the Roseland Theater, and you can get 1,500 people in there, but basically they'd get 50 bands playing between 8 a.m. and midnight that day or whatever, and you didn't know when you were playing. You were just going to play at the Roseland, and you had to sell tickets.
I mean, that looks good on the resume, but
right,
that's about it.
Yeah.
Maybe if they provided pictures or something, I don't know. I think there is a way you can do something like this and have it be worth it for the artist.
Right.
Have you heard of Raw Showcase?
No.
They have an LA system, but if you don't make your quota, you don't pay. Like they're not going to bleed you, at least. But they also offer headshots. They also take pictures of you while you're performing. They also, if you do make the 20, they incentivize you to make the 20 with a free Raw Showcase somewhere, some city of your choosing, which you're probably not going to make any money at, but it's a place to play a big stage with a lot of people in a new place. Yeah. So at something like that, I think that would be the right way to do it. Mm-hmm. Whereas the big time way, or whatever they were called, is not. It's an unethical way to do it.
Yeah, agreed. So what are some difficult times you've faced in general, like in your personal life, if you want to talk about that?
I mean, I don't think it's anything more than anything else has gone through as far as, like, we've all experienced heartbreak or betrayal in some aspects. So, I mean, I think, and a lot of my songs are about this, of just like the trial of being alive is kind of like the biggest trial of all. And, it's comes with pain and beauty at the same time. So nothing outstanding, I would say.
Okay. It is hard to enjoy the really good things if you haven't experienced some of the really bad things. Yeah. So
put things in perspective.
Yeah, definitely. How have you learned to overcome adversity?
Just through sheer willpower, I suppose. Rejection is hard, and especially when you're an artist, you have to deal with it a lot, and you kind of become numb to it at some point. Not numb, it still hurts. It still sucks to have somebody say, oh, that's not, I don't like that. I don't like what you're doing on stage or anything like that. But also knowing that there is a community out there that does like it.
Yeah.
And there is like people, my latest album has been listened to in many different countries now, through Spotify and iTunes. And so it's just having that as kind of your backup and knowing that even if it's not going to, like, as an artist, living artist, and business model, you might fail. But if it's what you want to do, if this is the style that you want to create, you're going to be doing it anyway. So, yeah, just kind of, I don't want to say apathy, because it's not apathy. It's something different. It's something more. But I don't know how to describe it. There's not words. Maybe I'll make a song about it, I guess.
There you go. Yeah, music continues the story when the words fail, right? How important is music to film and video storytelling?
I would say very, but that's not really my expertise. But I think we're a lot more used to music being everywhere now that it can be.
Yeah.
I mean, back in even just 100 years ago, you had to go somewhere to hear any music or play the music yourself.
Right.
And I think there's something missing with the ability to hear music at all times. When I'm on the road, I actually prefer not to listen to music. I listen to the news, really, and then my girlfriend hates it and turns it off. But when I'm on the open road, I just like to hear the wind or something.
Yeah. I spend a lot of time listening to podcasts instead of music, because when I'm playing and teaching and learning songs and all that, it's nonstop music, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to have some variety, I think.
Yeah, I'd like to. I was thinking about doing audiobooks for a while, but I drive a lot on the road to like gigs, and like usually it's late at night, and I don't want to fall asleep. So sometimes I just have to roll down the window all the way, or just like drink a little bit of like soda or tea or something while I'm driving, just to make sure that I keep going. I think a story would just knock me out.
That's tough. That is tough. Driving when you're exhausted is really tough. Do you tour a lot regionally?
Recently,
yeah.
We went on tour last summer for almost a month, and we went as far north as Bellingham and as far south as Medford, and we went to Eastern Oregon. I've been working this rotation now for a little bit, and I've been doing more stuff out in Eastern Oregon. And now we do like weekend tours when all of us are working, and I can't get everybody for a whole week or something like that. My current goal right now is to find a way to tour locally, internationally, like Canada or Mexico, basically.
Sure. Yeah.
Trying to figure out how to get into those markets, or at least all the way through the States. I want to head to Nashville, I think, is the goal.
Nice.
Just further is my goal for a tour next year in the summer.
All right. And how should people develop their art and their vision?
With passion, I think is a good answer to that. It's hard to say how, because I think people just will if they have the passion.
If they have it, okay.
Because if you're not passionate about it, I mean, well, first off, why you're doing it. But secondly, like you're just not gonna. If you don't want it, I think people sometimes want to be a musician without any steps in between.
Right.
They're just like,
I see that with students sometimes.
Yeah,
when Guitar Hero came out, it was just like, okay, teach me all the songs on Guitar Hero. It's
can
like,
you teach me Jimi Hendrix?
Right.
Well, you haven't had a single lesson or picked up a guitar a single time until now. So no, not yet. It's just there's a whole, like, if you're passionate enough, you will get to a place where you want to be. It may not be what you dreamed of being, but it's likely where you need to be.
Okay.
because you'll find a way to live off of it. You'll find out that maybe teaching, you do enjoy teaching, which I do.
Yeah.
I want to, I'm going to try and start getting students and teach Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday soon.
Nice.
That way, that leaves the whole weekend for the weekend and Thursday for playing gigs or whatever I want to, what other creative outlet I want to do. And I want to, like, you'll find a way, like, to just make it happen. You just have to explore a lot and have the drive to find these outlets. And I think that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
Because especially if you go to school for it, you're used to all the information just being given to you. You're used to absorbing information from your current surroundings and not having to look at it, look for it at all.
Yeah.
It's kind of like hunting now. Like if you sent me hunting, I would be awful at it because I don't know how to do that. I'm used to food just being given to me in exchange for dollars or services or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to hunt for this information.
Yeah, it's true. And learning how to do that, how to navigate that. I think a lot of people don't know what they're up against, you know, when they're trying to develop their art. It's like, okay, you know, like you were saying, you're in school. For example, music theory. Like I took, you know, 3-4 years of music theory before I was teaching the guitar very much. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't applying it to the guitar. So then, you know, when I started teaching more and I'm like, oh, well, I could just teach them these chord progressions with these numbers and then they can transpose it easily enough and use a capo easier and, mm-hmm. you know, learn how to get different voicings of these same chords if they just know how to spell the chord and stuff like that. So, well,
I think, yeah, you were saying that you don't think people know what they're up against. And I think that is super true. And the fact that, like, for not just music, I'm only talking about music because that's what I know. But I would say probably in any art, there are a number of factors working against you, like what you're going to price yourself at. Like you're your own worst enemy a lot of the time because you're like, oh, I just need to get my name out there, so I'm going to do it for free.
Right.
Or somebody will talk you down from a number that seems reasonable, and now you're in the hole a little bit because it took gas to get out there or something. You need to find, like, you need to have a good willpower to say no to things, and when you start saying no to things, different opportunities will show up. Like mm-hmm. if you say yes to something for a cheaper rate, if teaching could like pay better, just stay home and teach.
Right.
And your knowledge is another, which I think is what you were touching on, is another obstacle for you, because I think we teach in a very weird way. Like I was looking into kind of a lot of pedagogical skills and how to teach, and I think kind of a more Greek aspect, like ancient Greece, of just like having a tutor who will teach you this trade would be the much better way to do it, because they don't teach you in sections.
Right.
They things overlap. Like it was kind of mind blowing for me when you realize that Dr. Martin Luther King and Anne Frank were both born in the same year. And it's kind of like things overlap that you don't necessarily understand in a way that, I mean, music theory, guitar theory, fretboard theory, these are all similar things that can be taught and should be taught in tandem if you want a true understanding of the guitar.
Right.
Or just music in general. Like I'm trying to right now develop my lessons in a way that they are more than a guitarist when they're done with me.
They're a musician.
They're a musician, exactly. Yeah. They speak the language of music.
That's awesome. So how well does the system work for people, just as an extension of that, and for musicians?
I mean, the deeper you're in it, I think the more you realize that everybody's just kind of making it up as they go. Like there's these weird, once you're in it, you can kind of see all the different weird aspects, and here's all the people trying to take advantage of artists over here, but here's all the people with actual services for artists over here, and it's sometimes hard to distinguish them. But there's tests you can do, do they keep their promise ahead of time? and there's a bit of risk management to it, where there was this one company where I'm pretty sure was a scam, but their board of entry was $20, and they were promising the world. So I was like, all right, here's $20, and they're like, oh, but $75 to apply to any of these. I'm like, you can just have my $20. You're good.
Right.
I'm not gonna
keep going down that
exactly.
road.
I see what it is now.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna let you take a full $100 from me. You got 20. You earned that 20. You got me on that one, so I'll move on from there. But you also see that there's a lot of middlemen, and as long as you have the time and passion and knowledge, you can cut them out. You can do your own booking. You can do your own PR. You can do your own emails to press. There's all these things you can do on your own. It's way harder, and you probably eventually at some point should have somebody to do it, but at the exorbitant prices that they cost normally, for your average independent artist, it's not worth it. So trying to find a buddy or trying to do it yourself is kind of the only way.
Yeah, that's well put. I think it's bartering can be helpful if you can find somebody to trade services with like that. If somebody's trying to learn guitar and they know marketing or whatever,
yeah,
and they actually care about your project, I think that's...
Yeah, finding champions of your music or of your art in general, if we want to kind of make it more general, is not 100% necessary, but it helps a lot.
Yeah.
Finding people who will stick up for your music or your art somehow. It also takes a lot of stress off you because you don't have to be the only one in your corner.
It does, yeah. And how well do schools prepare kids for the real world?
I haven't been a kid in a long time.
How old are you?
More than a kid.
Okay.
No, I'm 31. It's I haven't been a kid in a long time, so I don't know as far as like younger generations how well they're going to be prepared. I'm hoping more than I was, but I also find at that age you don't take much seriously. And by that point, the academic world, like I said, has brought you to just think everything's just going to come toward you. Everything's going to come at you, and you'll just be able to make the right decision when you're presented with all the information possible. But that's not how it works, and that's how you get screwed a lot of the time.
Yeah. Can you tell us about your current projects and where you'd like to focus your energy over the next few years?
I sure can. My current project, of course, is the Jack Maybe project, which I lead and write for and arrange and compose and do all. And really everything that I do musically is under the moniker of the Jack Maybe project.
Okay.
Like my lessons are under that name.
Oh, wow.
I'm trying to make it more of a community.
A brand or a community?
Yeah.
Okay.
Brand, community, like a lot of that.
Yeah.
Than just the band. There's other aspects of it too. Like I'm going to try and do some music lessons in general with members of my band as well, but open to others as well. And I'm going to be kind of making some sort of community around it, where that's the effort I'm going to be putting in anyway. But I'm also into a lot of classical music, I should say. I'm going to be starting a duo with a friend of mine named Brandon Asbill. We haven't decided on a name or anything yet, so can't really prepare you.
Okay.
But
stay tuned.
Yeah, exactly. But he just won actually this weekend. He got second place on the Northwest Guitar Festival. Wow. And he's really good and very technical, very virtuosic. He downplays his own playing a lot, but then he goes out and wins second place at Northwest Guitar Fest. So he's very humble and very funny. And he's also going to be I'm going to be composing a few things, finishing compositions that I've already started. And he wants to perform them in his summer concert, is what he was saying. So, how
long are the pieces that you've composed?
Not very long, not for guitar anyway. Okay. I've composed a few bigger works, and even then, I'm not really done with them. But the guitar pieces are probably all under 2 minutes. Okay. But right now I'm composing a set of studies.
Okay. Etudes or studies or
studies.
Studies.
And it's not so cleverly or very cleverly named 5 Studies of the Human Condition. And
I think that's hilarious. Sorry.
and they're actually more musical studies than they are technique studies. I have about 1 or 2 spots in each study where the teacher should like focus, come in and like make sure that he or she is doing something specifically correct, but the rest you're just kind of seeing how they interpret the music more than anything.
Okay.
I'm trying not to have too much direction put in to leave a lot of room for the performer to interpret.
Meaning not a lot of dynamics and tempo and things
Correct.
like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is it modern sounding?
Yeah, I would say so. A lot of the harmonic language is, I mean, more modern than romantic, at least.
Okay.
Something you would hear maybe in the early 20th century or something like that. Yeah, it's I don't know. It's my stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. But I'm also in the bands Kiki and the Dowry. I play for Johnny Ampersand, and sometimes Cassie Velasza has me play with her. Hasn't for a while, but she and I are good friends, and so anytime that her bass player isn't around, she asks me, and I'm like, yeah, I'll do it.
Cool. So that's a lot of bands.
Well, Cassie's band is like she's got a bass player, and he's darn good as well. So I'm only kind of a fill-in for there. The one that takes up the most time would be probably Kiki and the Dowry, and that's the one I've kind of committed to being in the most as far as bands that I'm just in.
Mm-hmm.
And Johnny Ampersand, he'll just book a gig. We'll do one rehearsal and we'll play it. So it's not a lot of time.
Okay.
And he maybe plays a gig every once a month or so, if that.
So what future plans do you have for your music? Meaning, if you look out over 5 to 10 years, what do you think it's going to look like?
Well, I'm going to do the Jack Maybe project for a few years before a kind of an evaluation of
Sure.
where it's at, and kind of see what I'm going to do from there. So I'm in it for a few more years at the very least. I'm going to be expanding on my classical music a little bit. In 2 years, the Northwest Guitar Fest is going to come to Portland, so I might compete in that. Composition, I want to have a little bit more guitar music done, but there's also, I'm kind of leaning toward a lot of early Baroque style in the fact of composition, not in the fact of like harmonic language or melodic language, more in the fact that like I'm writing for 3 treble instruments and a bass instrument.
Okay.
And you can, whatever you want to do as far as the instrumentation goes, but that's what I'm like, 3 upper harmony, or 3 upper range, 1 lower range, or
Sort of like a string quartet, but it could be interpreted as,
yeah,
2 trumpets.
3 flutes and a contrabass. Who
Yeah,
knows? Yeah,
okay.
whatever you want to do from there. But I just want to like write out, like I'm really into the artistry and interpretation of the performer, and so I like to hear pieces that are super different. That's why I don't really enjoy romantic music as far as listening to it, because it's the same way every time.
Right.
Because there's so much dynamics and everything put in by the composer
Uh-huh.
that I think it overshadows what the performer wants to do with it. And so I'm going to be working on that.
Okay. That's cool. Do you believe that you'll record any of your original classical stuff or have it recorded?
I might have it recorded,
Okay.
or recorded in a live setting of somebody else playing it. I'm not sure I would play much of it. I might play some of my guitar stuff and record that, but even then I'm thinking I might just have Brandon record it. Like, I'm not...
It's hard when it's your baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to...
And I'm not into my own interpretation of my stuff, I guess, when it's art music, when it's on a different level than my... Because in a way, it's less personal because it doesn't have words attached to it. Or, I mean, it can if you want to do
Sure.
classical singing or operatic singing. But when I don't attach words to it, I like to see how it morphs into other people's hands.
Okay.
And that's kind of my project to myself as far as my art music is.
Okay. Nice. What are one or two memorable stories from your music career so far?
I mean, playing at the Doug for my album release in March was pretty memorable. We all had a blast playing, and meeting the Sam Chase and the Untraditional was a lot of fun too. They're a fun group. Being on tour was very memorable. A lot of inside jokes. Like if I said a few, people would be like, "That's not funny," but if I say it to my band member, they think it's hilarious. You get real close on the road. Real close. Which is a good and a bad thing. It's never bad in retrospect. It's always bad when you're there and you've had too much of somebody and you're just like, all right, I just need
a little
go
space,
to bed or something. Yeah. But and it's never, and I actually don't think it's ever really fun in the moment either, because you're all just tired and just trying to do your best. And then once you look back, you're like, that was a lot of fun. I missed out at the time, but now looking back, that was so much fun. Yeah. I realized how much fun I was having back then.
Nice. What are some books or artists or musicians, photographers, any creative people that you would recommend checking out?
Sure. I live in the musical world, so I don't have as much knowledge about artists or anything like that as much as I do bands or solo indie singer-songwriter type people. But I usually like to keep it local in any case.
Yeah.
A few artists around are Earl Castañeda and the artist that we use for a lot of our album art and posters and who does most of the Jack Maybe Project's work. Her name is Maggie Brandt. Check her out. She's really good. She doesn't do too much, which means that we kind of cornered the market on Maggie Brandt art, I would say, and better for us. But she's really good, and that's why I always have her do our art. I always ask her. But moving to musicians, one of my local favorites, Ezra Bell, Maurice and the Stiff Sisters, Will St. John and His Old Fashioned Love. I mean, I play in that last one, so maybe I'm a little biased, and Will's also my banjo player. But Ezra Bell and Maurice and the Stiff Sisters are two bands that I kind of look up to. They're really good. And then if you're looking for more kind of a country thing, Cassie Velasquez and Taylor Kingman, they're kind of the star players in Portland for that, and they're super fun to listen to. Like every once in a while I'll play with Cassie, but I usually just go out and hear her music for the most part. That's how I see her most often, I suppose.
Okay.
And Taylor Kingman's super good too. Can I think of anybody else? Yeah, there's plenty of solo artists around town that I listen to. Joel Swenson, Benny Gilbert's, if he's ever in town again, he moved up to Shayless, but he was in King Columbia for a while. He's one of my favorites. Yeah, there's a bunch of talent in Portland.
Yeah. Very talented town for sure. If you could give 14-year-old Trinh some advice, what would it be?
To stop waiting for something to happen. You just have to go and do a thing. Like it's weird when you finally figure out that there's nothing really stopping you from doing what you want to do as far as like art goes. Like, I want to make an album. Okay, then make an album. Go do that thing that you wanted to do.
That is really great. I like that.
Yeah,
how you put that.
You're the only thing stopping you. Like, and that comes right back to people want to be done. People want to be like finished before they've even started.
Yeah.
And I get the same way, and I totally get it. I want to be done as soon as I start something. Usually. But it's just a matter of, are you going to be able to, do you have the biggest factor, do you have the time to do it? Like, you've committed to a bunch of other things. Do you have the time to do it? And then secondly, are you gonna?
Yeah.
Those are the two things that are like stopping you from doing whatever art thing you want to do.
So that was good. I like how you put that. How important do you feel like music and the arts are to society?
I mean, I think I think they're very. I mean, clearly, I think they're very important. I'm an artist myself, but I think they're undervalued by most people, though. They don't realize how much art has an effect on them.
How do musicians and creative artists keep from being obscure or obsolete?
That's a tough question. I mean, I have no idea, to be honest, but I know that music and art themselves don't go obsolete. So it clearly has nothing to do with the subject matter.
Right.
It is the artist itself. I mean, and it's hard to know exactly what makes somebody irrelevant, I suppose. But I think I would say, as long as you are true in whatever that means to you, and you're trying to do things that you know, and you're not just speculating. As long as your art is, what's the word I'm looking for? As long as your art has integrity,
Okay.
in its own aspect, because a lot of art is lying on purpose. So, but whatever integrity is behind that lie,
Yeah.
in some aspect.
And I guess in that question, like, that's a good answer. Absolutely. But I think, I don't mean the person is, doesn't have value or whatever, but their brand is not growing. Them as an artist is not getting any, enough resources to be able to continue their art.
Inspiration works wonders, I think, sometimes. And a lot of the time, especially in a more digital society, we tend to get stuck in a rut. And I am more... I get stuck in a rut all the time, more than I would really like to say, but I get stuck in it too, and it's hard to make anything meaningful when you're in that rut. And it's hard to grow as an artist when you're in that rut. And it's hard to figure out how to get out of that rut. And as far as a good answer goes, what works for me, I'm not going to say this is like this is what you need to do. I don't think I would ever say that in any real context whatsoever. This is what you need to do. No. What works for me is doing something I normally wouldn't do, or being alone outside of my room, outside of the house somewhere. Even if it's just at a bar, drinking whiskey by myself. Like, even that can lead to some sort of inspiration. Whether or not it has anything to do with art is aside the point. But eventually, in some way, that inspiration will lead to the art. It may not be direct, but doing things that you wouldn't do, new experiences, and having novel ideas, at least to you, is probably the best way to get out of a rut and to grow as an artist.
Should musicians and creative artists just go for it, or get a stable job and do their art on the side?
Yeah, I like the way you put this question, because I would, the way I'm trying to do it is to, like, I'm not just going for it, but I'm not going to have a stable job. It's more, I'm doing art and I have a side job. Cause I don't think I'm not going to work. I think personally for me, and I know for quite a few others, they like working 40 hours a week kills any creativity they have. Just gone immediately. As soon as you get home from like a 10-hour workday or an 8 to 10-hour workday, you have no energy, strength, because you need energy to be creative. And you just, all you want to do is turn off because you've been working at the same thing all day. And I am trying my best never to have to do that. Someday I might, and I might eat these words and feel real sad. But for now, I am trying my best not to do something like that. That's why I want to teach, because if I teach at least my personal lessons Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, pay is all right. I can focus on my art at least, and then I feel like I'm giving back. It's a bit more rewarding. I can see tangible improvement, which like a lot of shops. I mean, I worked retail. There's no improvement in retail. There's just, you just sit there and you sell the same things, have the same spiel every time a customer walks in the door. and seeing actual improvement in your students is kind of a big deal.
Yeah. It feels great.
Yeah.
And you're adding value to their life in ways that neither one of you can know. Anytime, you know, because I have students that, you know, I just talked to a guy this morning that just finished an album that used to take lessons from me.
Nice.
And,
That's got to be super
Yeah, it was
rewarding.
cool. It was like, wow, that's great. So how many hours do you teach when you're doing that? Or have you figured that out yet?
I haven't figured it out yet.
Okay.
And
is it class types lessons or is it individual one-on-one?
I'd be open to class lessons. I mean, first off, class lessons would be much better for me, the teacher, because
Sure.
I would get so much more money.
Right.
Yeah, I get paid for every student that's there. But it's not best for the student, so I don't typically do that. An idea that was pitched to me in my business and music class, however, was having tangential lessons overlap a little bit, because it like you do, like there is an amount of synergy and an amount of like togetherness and camaraderie that can happen in when more than one person is in a lesson at a time.
Wow.
But I mean, you have to figure out who's right to do that and with who, and make sure that the parents are on board, and there's a whole spiel with it. I mean, and that would technically be better for the teacher because you get more students within the hour, and the students can grow from it as well, and you still have your alone time with the student to help them make sure that they're growing and learning their pieces or whatever. But as far as I haven't implemented basically any of this yet. I'm trying to finish development here in the summer.
Okay.
And then start teaching in the fall. But as soon as because I'm getting my master's right now, so that's taking up all of my time.
Yeah.
And this exit project, which I'm way behind on, is going to destroy me within the next week or two. But after I'm done focusing on the school, I can use the summer for development, doing and trying to figure out how I'm gonna juggle everything. And maybe I might need to get a job to survive, but we'll see. Or at least a part-time something. And then as soon as fall hits, I can start advertising at a few schools and senior homes and see what I can do from there.
Yeah.
But I want to teach Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. My goal is to teach from 3 p.m. to about 7.
Okay.
So about 4 hours a day.
That seems reasonable. I do occasionally, I'll have a Thursday from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. and that
seems like
wipes you out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a job right there.
It is.
You have no creativity at the end.
Yep. And yeah, I do teach 5 days a week, and Saturdays and Sundays are often full as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's 10 to 5 and 10 to noon to 5. So.
And when I'm talking about, I don't mean to put down jobs as much as I am. I am actually very pro job. If you have a job that you love, do it.
Yeah.
Because.
Well, I think you said that earlier too.
Yeah. But I just wanted to make clear because I've been dissing on jobs for the past 10 minutes or so. So I want to make I if you find passion in anything, I think it's important that you do it. If it's your job, awesome. If it's an art, awesome. If it's a craft, do your craft.
Yeah. Nice. How important is story to music?
I think that is just from musician to musician.
Sure.
I mean, classical musicians have no story. Bach, BWV 1000 has no story attached to it. You can't. I mean, you can maybe derive your own story out of it, but it's non-program music. Non-program specifically means without any. It's music for the idea of music. However, there's bands like, what is it? Is it Wooden Sleeper? I don't remember what it's called, but there's a song called Sinking Ship, and the vocalist doesn't sing. He's just telling you a story the entire time or something like that. And, with those, that's the point of the music is to kind of
the story.
Be behind the story. And so I'll just give you the range of from it's everything to it's nothing.
Right. Okay. That's a good range.
In my music, it's secondary, but it's there.
Well, and I think you like it to be open to the audience's interpretation, right?
Definitely.
So, yeah.
But that's not to say that I don't like I also think that their interpretation is important to it.
Yeah.
Or whoever's interpretation, like an interpretation is important to my music, because it's not music just for the sake of music. If it was, that'd be the most boring music, because I'm just, if you're doing chorus versus chorus and it's just the same stuff, it's just going to be, and if it's just music, I should say, then you're just like, oh, it's this again.
Right. I know this theme.
Extended double rondo or whatever.
But I think, and that's, like you said, it is open to the interpretation. But I think, so Moonlight Sonata, for example, or like Lagrima or whatever, as a classical guitar piece, can have a feel to it that can evoke emotion, but it may or may not have an actual story to it.
I mean, there's also like a whole historical argument of like, because as soon as any piece is given a name that isn't Concerto No. 3,
right,
it becomes program music in a way. Like if you put that on your program as Moonlight Sonata and not Sonata number, what is it, 3 or 4? I don't remember. I'm not that great at piano music,
okay.
But whatever. If you don't put it as Sonata number whatever, then you're putting it in as program music, as music with a theme and a kind of a story behind it.
Okay.
And therefore, story may not be as important as like a story to like a storyteller artist.
Right.
But there's still a story there, and therefore maybe has slight importance to you.
Okay.
And a lot of the time, actually, in classical music, when especially like in between sets, also like in between sets during a classical performance, you'll often hear the performer be like, well, when I learned this piece, I was doing, here's my story with this piece, da 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 da. Like that, you're adding a story or a program to it somehow.
Yeah.
Which in modern classical performance is important. And like we're taught that in school, how to talk to the audience in some aspect.
Yeah, it does give it it gives it more importance to the audience if they can connect it to something else. I think, How can music and art help people? Have you seen an impact, and do you have any examples?
I think we would be hard pressed. I'm not saying impossible, but we'd be hard pressed to find somebody who we would talk to who's not had their mood, emotions, or way of thinking affected by an artist somehow. They might not consider it like that, but artists, I had somebody come in, being slightly tangential here, but when I was I used to, in my undergrad, practice in the park box constantly. I always liked to be in public and kind of being in the background. And at one point, somebody came up to me and started talking to me in the park blocks. And usually when you're like that, you're like, oh no, somebody new is coming up to me.
Right.
What did I do? But we started talking about artists and artistry. And he said something along the line. This was like 6 or 7 years ago at this point. He said something along the lines of, artists are the first people in the revolution, or artists are the first people to change people's minds. Something to that effect. And he said it a few times. And I didn't give him much credit at the time because I was just busy trying to keep my head down and play my music. But the more I thought about it, the more that I think, like, I agree with him a lot. Like, I know I would not be the same without music in any aspect, but I'm a musician, so I'm biased, clearly. But my roommate, who's not a musician, he got a guitar recently, and I've been teaching him a little bit here and there, but he enjoys music as well. But I mean, maybe not to the extent that I do. I get really involved in my entire life, and I can become snobby at some points, but he enjoys it. He doesn't have the vocabulary. He's getting the vocabulary for it. But it clearly has affected him too.
Yeah.
It's affected another friend. Like, it doesn't need to be music. I met one person who astonished me because he didn't listen to music very much. I was like, I don't understand. Like, I think at a basic level, he and I didn't get along. But he was very much a visual person.
Yeah.
We'd go to art galleries all the time. So I don't think it necessarily needs to be music, but I think we would be very hard pressed to find somebody who wasn't affected by an art somehow. So great importance. I don't have, like, I have some stories that I've heard, and I've had some like anecdotes in my life about how music has changed my mood or changed a friend of mine's mood, but I don't like anecdotes for something that is important like this. Like,
Okay.
I think that music in itself can stand on its own accord, and I think you don't need to teach somebody music to be better at math. I think you can teach somebody music so that they're good at music and have a healthy relationship with their emotions. Because I'm not sure it's exactly.
Yeah, that's really good. What skills are important for everyone to learn?
I'm not sure it's exactly music related, but everybody should have some sense of themselves. And I think it's important for somebody to check in on themselves at different points in their life somehow. I do it a lot because I'm passionate about growth in some aspect, but also it affects my art, it affects my life. But I don't think enough people check in on why they think or feel things about ways in people. I think it's just they have these ways that they feel and they don't really question them. But maybe everybody does, and we just all say this about each other, and it could be that too. I don't want to.
I definitely know not everybody does question them, and then sometimes they go through a point where they question them, and then sometimes they stop again. And that, I think that's really well put. Go ahead.
And I think another skill people should get good at is asking for things that they need. Not only in like a friend sense, to your friends, to like, which is important to build relationships and to be honest with the people and the things that you need, but in a professional sense. In order for me to go to this gig, I need gas money. In order for me to stay at this job, I need a raise. Like it comes with like a day-to-day thing. Like if you can't get what you need from where you are and what you're doing, find a way around it.
Yeah.
But that again, we come back to if you want a better job, you got to find it or make it somehow.
Yeah.
You can't just expect somebody to hand it to you. You can't expect your boss to come down and give you a job when, like, unless you ask for it.
Yeah.
You have to let them know, hey, I'm looking for something better. You need to let the booking managers know, hey, I'm looking for better gigs. You need to let people who are hanging your art in these galleries know that I need this much for these pieces. I mean, that's a given. I don't know much about the art world, so
It's okay.
but I assume that they're going to run into the same problems everybody else does.
I think you're right. Yeah. And that even goes down to the detail of like, I need more of my mic in the monitor or whatever, because I've had gigs like that. Like, yep, sounds good. And then once the drums start going through the speakers, you're just like, I can't even hear myself.
I need to learn to do that on live shows too. Yeah, there's been a few gigs where I'm like, yeah, I think we can do this. And then we go, I'm like, I can't hear any of what I'm doing right now.
That's
I
rough.
hope I'm doing this correctly.
Yeah, it's rough.
But then I've already said let's do it, so I don't want to go back on it. So I gotta learn my own advice here on this subject.
We all do, man. What are some social issues that people should care more about?
I would say all of them. I don't think it's. I mean, not you should. When I say that, I don't mean that you should, like, agree with me on all points. I'm saying that you should at least care about the subject in one way or another.
Yeah.
I don't think apathy is responsible or I think it's negligent, and I don't like it when I run into it.
Yeah.
I run into it a lot though. And again, I'm not saying you have to agree with everything I say, but to not even know the issues, I think can be disheartening to those who it affects.
Yeah.
And I think if you're willingly ignorant about these things, you're unintentionally hurting people in some aspect.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it gets challenging because it's overwhelming, like
It
how
can
much.
be very overwhelming.
Yeah.
But I don't want to get super political on this interview, but a friend of mine who's, most of my, I'd be hard pressed to find anybody in Portland who would say that they agree with Trump in my friend group. But there was one friend of mine who got kind of overwhelmed by everything.
Yeah.
And she was just like, how can I keep up this fight? I'm already tired, and it's been like week 2. This was early.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, you have a lot of fighting to do, but you don't have to fight every day.
It's a good point.
Fight when it's important to fight, and then take care of yourself.
Choose your battles. Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to fight your grandfather every single time he says something racist, if that's the type of person he is.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to, when it's important, just say your piece, and then you can let him do whatever he's going to do on his own time.
Yeah. I think that's a good strategy. Is there a way that we as artists can work together, help one another, and maintain our own creativity and vision for our journey?
I'm sure there is. I haven't thought of it that way very much. I'm sure there is, but
I think in a way you're doing it with your group.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But it's not reliant on other artists per se. It's reliant on the community around, in which I'm trying to develop and cultivate. And I think as long as artists find their support system somehow, I'm not talking monetarily, although
Right.
that helps. If you're able to find a patron, do it. But I think those days have been long gone for a long time. I'm talking more about emotionally, people who support you will help you with advice, feedback, hell, even rides to gigs if you need it or anything like that. People who believe in you and not use it as a one-way road. Like, you have to be in touch and mend your relationships with all of them as well, which is something I've had to learn. I have a very large community, but it'd be impossible to talk to them all every day.
Right.
But I know the right people for me and how we get along. We don't have to talk to each other every week or every month even.
Yeah.
I can pick up with quite a few of my friends, my extended further friends, wherever we just left off.
Sometimes, yeah, it's funny how that works.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's years.
I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And necessary.
And sometimes those relationships are stronger and deeper than we realize.
Yeah.
You know, those friendships.
As long as you allow them to be. You know?
Yeah, yeah. Where can people find you online, and how can they support your music in a cool way?
Finding me online is fairly easy. You just type in the Jack Maybe Project. I will come up on Instagram. I will come up on Facebook. I'm pretty sure my personal page would come up. My personal page is jackmaybeproject.com. If you look up the Jack Maybe Project, you'll find Instagram and you'll find Facebook pretty easily. If you're on a phone, it would be, in looking up the Instagram, it'd be Facebook is I think where we're the most active.
Okay.
I update my shows on my personal site, so if you want to see if we're in your area, that'll be a good way to do it. Supporting us, that is a good question that I think people should look into more, because you can support artists in a multitude of ways, and it doesn't always take money. You can support us by listening to us on a streaming service. If you want to spend money, let's start with that. Buying an album, easy. That's really the only
Merch.
Oh, yeah, buying a shirt, going to our shows.
Yep.
Those are the ways to do it. Going to the shows, and if there's nothing at the door, putting something in the tip jar.
Yeah. Do you have a Patreon or anything like that at this point?
Not yet.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I will.
Okay.
I might, but I haven't needed it yet. If anything, I'll probably do kind of an Indiegogo thing, a project-based something, more than just kind of a passive income. Because I do think in art that you should, if you're not working, you shouldn't probably have a passive income. But if you are working on something and have stuff for people, services, like, you should be paid for those very well. But it's hard for me to justify, at least myself, to get a Patreon when I'm not, when I'm giving you nothing. It's hard for me. And I know a lot of artists who struggle with this as well.
Well, I think sometimes people find more value in an artist than the artist realizes. And I'm
sure that's true.
So if your album's $15 or $20 and they want to give you more for it, mm-hmm. It's robbing them of the ability to give you more.
I mean, if you go to Bandcamp, you can pay for our album whatever price you want beyond the $10 that I'm requesting.
That's cool.
And in person, that's the same way. So if you want to support us, just buy our album at a much higher price. Do it. We would be super into that. But not everybody, and especially, I feel like especially people who need art aren't always in the best financial situations.
That's a lot of true.
So if you want to still support us and you don't have the money to donate, sharing us, and not just like a share on like Facebook, but like showing us to your friend, or not. And I'm going to move on past just us. Any artist that isn't like under a huge label or something,
right?
If you show them to your friend the same way you would any other big artist, that is a huge help. That's like the 2 cents we didn't have to pay on the advertising for that Facebook ad or whatever, and that they didn't even look at and pass through.
Right.
Have it like showing like reposting stuff on our Facebook page also helps us a great deal. Reposting, commenting, any sort of interaction online helps a great deal with any artist. But being the cultivator of culture to your group of friends is probably the best way to support any artist.
The cultivator of culture. Man, that is a phrase I haven't heard. Did you just coin that, or is that
I guess. I don't know.
Nice. That's brilliant. Well done.
I'm sure somebody said it. Like those words aren't that far apart, I feel.
That's true. All right. Are there any questions I should have asked you that I did not?
I'm pretty bad at this type of thing, so there's probably something, but no, I think you've covered most of the good stuff, so
okay.
I think it's good.
I sure appreciate your time, and thank you, and definitely great success to your music career and your art, and thank you for being such an important part of the Portland and Northwest, music scene. So,
of course. Thanks for having me.
Cool.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Trinh.
Thank you.
Find out more at artmedianorthwest.com. ARTMEDIANW.com. Thanks for listening. Tune in next week for our next episode.